Today we will take a look, talk about the message is entitled True Happiness and Joy. And I want to share this message with you guys today. An old Chinese Confucian scholar, he looked back on his life and said that there were 4 major unbearable pains in human life. In his life. The first pain was this, is hunger and being cold. First of all, we have a pain that we can't eat and wear physical clothes. It's the pain of poverty that can't solve the pain of being hungry. Clothing and shelter. And of course, physical food, clothing, and shelter are not the only thing that can make people go through a hard time. The second pain is being cold. Being cold suffers mentally as well. Even if one is well fed and dressed well, but consider a case of being ignored and disrespected by others. From this one suffering from a lot of pain that is hard to deal with mentally. And thirdly, he said that humans often have a hard time worrying about the things that they worry about. In fact, most of the things we're worried about and worried about are for nothing, meaningless things. In fact, one person, Ernie Zelensky, said that 96% of our worries were useless worries. So what that means is this. In his view, statistically, 40% of our usual worries are concerned about things that never happen. And 30% of our worries are worries that things that had already happened. And 22% of our worries are concerning about trivial things that don't need to be bothered. So what that means is this. So out of all of our worries, 96% of our worries are useless. And only 4% are concerned about what we can really deal with. Nevertheless, we often suffer for useless worries and anxiety. We have a difficult time regarding that. So we have physical pain, but there is also mental pain, and there is pain that is caused by unnecessary worries in our lives. But looking back at my entire life, he said, the most difficulty was the fourth one, which was leisure, not having much to do. He looked back on his life and said that the most unbearable pain that humans suffer was the pain of being idle. Of course, we may think that what is pain is to relax. But if you go far, you say it's worse than you're lacking. If a healthy person is free all year, has nothing to do, how hard is it for that person to bear that? Let's think about a person who is having a very difficult time finding a job. Think about it. That person really wants to work, but they have nothing to do. If you want to work like this, and they can't find a job, then they would think that they're useless and needless. So the reason being idle is painful is because you think you are useless unnecessary and useless.
생각되기 때문이라는 거예요. 그래서
So in this view,
이런 견해에 따르면요. 어떤 삶이 행복한 삶입니까?
so what kind of life
우선은
would be
의식주가
considered happy? First of all,
어려움을 겪지를
one shouldn't suffer from food, clothing, and shelter.
인정받지 못하고 함부로 무시당하는
And they also should not suffer mental pain, such as being unrecognized, ignored, and disrespected by people,
쓸데없는 걱정을 하지 않아야 합니다.
and should not worry about thinking about useless, unnecessary worries.
한가하게만 보낼 것이 아니라
Also, for a happy life, you should not just spend your time idly, but have things to do.
수 있는 일이 있고
There's things that I can do.
일이 있고 내
There are things
가치를 인정받을 수 있는 일이 있다.
that I need. If I can be recognized for my value, I can be as happy as I am.
그러니까 일 때문에
So you should
피곤하기도
be able to thank God sincerely for the fact that you are tired and tired from work, but that you have work
진심으로
depending on your thoughts.
를 드릴 수 있어야
So we should be able to thank God for the work that we have. Of course,
우리가 건강하지 못하면요.
you can't work if you're not healthy, even if you have work to do. That is an obvious thing to say.
삶을 위해서는 또 우리 자신들이 건강해야 합니다.
So it's only natural. You have to be healthy
우리가 듣는 말 중에
to have a happy life. In fact, once in a while we hear these things. If you lose a fortune, you lose a little bit. If you lose a lot of honor, you lose.
잃어버리면 다
But if you lose
잃는 것이다.
a lot of your health, you lose everything, is a saying that we hear.
병 환자들
What else do patients who fight the disease often say?
건강만 내가 회복
If I could only recover my health, that there is nothing in this world that I could ever desire.
그렇기 때문에요.
That's why just by being able to work with good health,
있는 것만 가지고도 우리는
we should be able to thank God
감사를 드릴 수.
just for being able to work with good health.
실제로 여러분 성경에서는요.
In fact, when and how did human work start in the Bible? Let's look at Genesis chapter 1.
하나님께서 세상의 모든 만물들을요 창조하신
When did the work of God's creation of all things in the world end?
그냥 만물을 만드신 것으로 끝나지를
It didn't just end with
마지막
making everything. On the last
창조하시고요. 그
6th day, He created man and made him rule over all other creatures.
자, 그런 다음에
Then God saw all this
것을 보셨어요.
and He saw this.
그런데 보시기에 뭐라고 나왔어요?
And what did He say afterwards?
좋았다라고.
And He said it was very good. He was very pleased.
그러니까 인간은요.
So humans were created from the very beginning to govern other creatures.
하도록 창조가 된
And
것이.
that's how God has created us.
그리고 이렇게
And it was very
일을 하는 것이
It was very good in God's eyes that humans were doing things and working like this.
역시요, 당연히
That's why we should also work
즐거워서 우리는
happily with joy. And that is why we need to work.
그런데도
Still,
우리 인간은
we sometimes think
일에 대해서
wrongly
잘못
about
생각을
human affairs and about work.
인간이 일을 하게 된 것이 죄를 지었기
That we think that
때문이다라는
humans are working because we have sinned.
그래서 일을 기쁨으로 생각하지 못해요.
So we don't think of work as joy,
징계로 처벌로
but we often feel annoyed whenever we think of work and we think of as a disciplinary punishment or curse.
물론 아담과
Of course, when Adam and Eve were kicked out of the Garden of Eden,
선악과를 따먹은 잘못
Adam had to sweat all his life, and Eve had to work hard to have children because of their mistakes of
했습니다.
eating the fruit of the evil.
죄의 대가가 된 것입니다.
And that is why the work
적으로 읽어보면요.
is simply the price of sin.
하나님부터요.
However, when you see from Genesis chapter 1, God was happy when he worked.
인간 역시요. 죄가 없을 때도 일을 해야 했고
And we had to work
이런 일은
when we were
어떤 것이든지요.
innocent.
하나님께서 주신 그 은사로 받아 드렸다라는 거예요.
And he accepted to work as his calling.
하나님께서
Of course, on the seventh day,
하시던 모든 일들을
God stopped everything he had done and rested. So we humans need rest as well. Let's look at Genesis 2 verse 2. It says, on the seventh day, God had finished his work of creation, so he rested from all his work.
날에 안식하시니라 이렇게 말합니다. 여러분, 그런데
But before God
하나님께서는요,
rested on the seventh day,
일곱째 날에 안식하시기 전에
what did he do?
동안
He
일을
has been working for the first 6 days.
그러니까 우리 역시
So we're not just going to think of rest either.
생각할 것이 아니라 일하는
We have to think about working as well.
그렇지 않고요. 그냥
If you take a rest because it looks good and envious, you will end up being a useless person.
문제가 되고 만다라는 거예요. 우리는
We need to know this point very clearly. It's easy to think that working is pain and resting is happiness,
이라고 생각하기 쉽지만 여러분 한번 쉬어 보세요.
but everyone,
참 며칠은 좋아요 쉴 때요.
why don't you try taking a rest?
하루 쉬고 다음 날 또 놀고
First day is good.
쉬고 또 자고
I rest one day, play one day, doze off one day,
그럼 더는요 쉬지를 못해요.
and then after that, we can't rest anymore.
하나님께서는요
God blessed us
일하는 것과 쉬는 것
with work,
노동과 안식을요
rest,
복으로 우리에게
and labor and rest. God gave us these as blessings.
즐겁고 일하고 나서 쉬면요 행복합니다.
I enjoy working and feel happy resting after working.
노동을 모르는 사람은요
Therefore, those who do not know labor do not know
모르는 사람은요
peace and rest. And those who do not know the meaning of work do not know the meaning. Those who do not know the meaning of rest do not know the meaning of work. These two are God's blessing given to us in order of creation. But in reality, we often
일과
misunderstand things about work and rest.
오해를 할 때가 많습니다. 그래서 오늘 우리는요 오늘 본문 말씀을 통해서
So today,
일과 안식에 대한
regarding work and rest,
오해가 무엇인지를 한 세 가지
I want to go through three misconceptions
했습니다.
of what that is.
일을 하지 않는 사람이 무조건 행복하다라는 생각입니다.
The first thing is, happy people
그래서
are those who do not work,
신분이 낮은 사람이 하는
is
것이고
our misconception.
신분이 높은
First of all, people who don't work are always happy is what we think. That's not that's why work is done by people of low social standing. If you have a high status, I think
샀어요.
you don't work. How wrong is this?
어떤 블록
Of course, we can get material things, unearned income, just like winning a lottery. However, unearned income is a substance that I got without having to work hard.
물질입니다. 이런
Even if these
물질과
substance
땀 흘려서
and the substance I sweat from look at the same on the outside,
여러분 이것이
can you say that they are the same?
아니라는 거예요.
No way.
우리 자녀들이요 부모님과 함께 살 때
When our children used to live with us,
용돈도 받고 또 필요한
they get allowance from parents and they ask their parents and use all the things that they need. Whatever they request from parents,
그것이 얼마나
they do not know how precious it is and they don't know the worth of money. They don't know the worth of working hard. But once they get a job, once they start making making the money by themselves, they know the value of the money. And when they spend it, they don't just spend it frivolously.
내가 이렇게 일을 해서
I had to work this hard,
하는 것이기 때문에 그 가치
and so they know the worth very well. And so that's why the things that they buy the worth becomes different. Why is that?
내가 땀 흘려 얻은 물질에는요. 그야말로
Because the materials that I got from sweating contains hard work.
여러분 우리가 어떤 물질을 가졌다라고 할 때요.
When we have a substance, we can enjoy the blessings of possession of it.
그런데 그것이 노동
But if it's earned without labor, we can't enjoy the blessings of true value there.
방금 전에 말씀드린 것처럼
As I shared before,
노동해서 일해서 구입한 그 물건에
the things that we bought with hard work,
누군가가 사줘서
someone that just gave you for free,
분명
the value is different.
그것이 주는 기쁨이
The joy that this product gives you,
확연하게
it is extremely different.
그래서요 그 가치의 복은요
The blessing of the value
자의 것입니다.
belongs to the laborer.
전적으로
It belongs to the hard worker.
창세기에
In
보면
Genesis,
하나님께서
God created heaven and earth,
그것이
and it was good,
하나님 보시기에 좋았다라고 하였습니다.
and it was good, is what God said.
만들어 놓으시고
God also made the universe, and He was pleased.
여러분 우리가
Our congregation,
곳에 가면
when we go to a scenic spot,
사진을 찍어서
we go there
남기고
and we take pictures there.
요즘에는
These days, there are so many people who take pictures to post on their social media, and they enjoy that.
본인이 찍어서 올린 것들을 사람들이 보고 또한 사람들이 거기에 댓글 달아주는 것들
And so they really find joy and happiness when people write comments underneath.
찍어요. 그리고 그 사진을
I feel good when we take pictures and we see it later.
사진이 잘
The joy that
그 사진을
other
보면서
people can't know when the picture I took, the person came out well.
왜요? 직접 내가 찍은 것이
Because we took it myself.
그 기쁨은요 다른 사람들이 알 수가
And I'm so glad that I took the picture, and it's great because it was my work.
그토록 기쁜 것이거든요. 왜요? 내
The joy that comes from the work belongs entirely to the person who has created it.
잘 찍었네 이 정도의 감정에서 끝나지만 직접 그걸 보고 찍었던 사람은
But the person that has taken that picture,
그것을 찍음으로써 나한테 오는 그 기쁨은
the amount of joy that they get
찍지 않고 보는 사람들과는 분명히 다르다라는 것입니다.
versus the person that are just going and seeing the picture,
자, 운전들을 하시잖아요.
the joy is totally different.
하시죠.
Also, everyone,
굉장히 좋은
we all drive a car.
가지고 있습니다.
We all have a nice car.
가지고 있어서 내가 원하는 차를 가지고 있어서 그 차를 소유했다는 것 때문에 굉장히 기뻐할 수도 있습니다.
We can say that we like the car because we have a nice car. But when is it when we really enjoy the car?
직접
It's when we
그럴 때 나한테 오는 그 기쁨은요.
drive it ourselves. The joy
수가 없다라는 거예요.
of us driving the car that we enjoy is
내가
uncomparable.
운전하는 기쁨이 훨씬 더 크다라는 거예요.
The joy that
만약에
we have when we are driving it ourselves.
기사가 있어요.
But what if we had to sit around the back seat with a driver?
내가 그 기쁨을 누릴 수가 있을까요?
Those
그 뒷좌석에
those
앉아서
comfortably in the back seat don't know the joy that it brings when we drive it ourselves. We sometimes have headaches and get car sickness sitting in the back. We cannot find that joy of actually driving the car. According to the Leader's Digest magazine, driving in the secret of living a long life. Driving is the secret of living a long life. And that's how I feel as well. If you are a person, you have to work. That there is joy when working. Somehow the standard of value is wrong, and the person who works is vulgar, and someone that plays is nobleman, but that's a wrong idea. It becomes a self-calling misfortune. Second point is this. The misconception of us that we have about work and rest.
무조건 일을 하지 않아야
is that the idea that you shouldn't work to be healthy.
데살로니가후서 3장 6절
Let's look at verse 6. And now, dear brothers and sisters, we give you this command in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Stay away from the believers. When you who live idle lives and don't follow the tradition they receive from us.
그래서 일을 하지 않아야
Another thing that's easy to misunderstand is that you don't have to work unconditionally to be healthy. And that's why I think you should save your body and not work to live a long and healthy life. According to a report published by the World Health Organization, people that use up more energy
힘이 생긴다라는 거예요.
when you're idle, and you get as much energy as you need when you're working.
죽는다라는 것을요.
So the people
증명하고
who don't work die earlier. But people who work and use a lot of energy live longer.
장수하시는 분들, 오래 사시는 분들을 좀 보시기를
Let's think about the people that are living a long life around us.
부지런합니다.
Those people are
뭔가 일을
they are continuously working.
아프리카의 성자라고
Another thing that's easy to misunderstand
목사가요. 역시
is that it's medically proven that people who play unconditionally
살았습니다.
age and die faster.
말년에 이런 말을 남겼습니다.
Look at someone who lives long.
좋은 약은
Dr.
내가 할 일을
Schwarzer
없다라는
is a doctor from Africa, lived a primitive life with
내가 할 일을
African natives
없다라고,
and was 95 years old.
열심히
He said this in the later years. The best medicine for every disease is knowing that I have a job to do.
요새까지
It is the best medicine to run hard, working,
다른 사람도 건강
knowing that I have a job to do. You need to have something to do in order to live a healthy life at 95 and to live a long, healthy life.
그리고 인간이 일이나 안식에 대해서 오해하는
And another a misconception that people have about work and
우리가 오해하는 것이 있는데 그게
resting.
행복은
Third point is this.
혼자만
Believe that selfish happiness is possible.
하지만 참된 행복은요 결코 혼자서 누릴 수가
Lastly, the other thing that we misunderstand a lot is they believe it's possible to enjoy happiness alone. But true happiness is never something that you can enjoy alone, but something that you enjoy together.
그런 것을
The same goes for men and women who love each other. As long as I'm bothering someone to be happy, how can such a thing be called true happiness?
나도
Don't you think I can be happy only if the other person is happy?
그러니까요
So happiness
행복은요 절대로
is never
누리는
enjoyed
아니라
alone,
함께
but enjoyed together.
구약 성경에서
In the Old Testament,
원래 하나님도
God was originally
꿈으로
said to work with joy.
그만큼
And that's how much Jewish people thought work and labor were basically very important. However, the idea that ruled the world during the New Testament was a dualism that divides everything into good and evil.
그래서 초대교회
Therefore, even the early churches were often mistaken for good and Holy Spirit, but materials were evil and vulgar.
일과 노동도
And work and labor were evil and vulgar, and they thought wrongly like this. The early church, even though that in order to be holy, they had to stay away from work and labor.
까지 했습니다.
And that was their misconception. But
말씀을 보면
what does it say in today's passage? In short, I strongly condemn the life of eating nothing without working.
책망을 하고 있더라는 거예요. 이런 사람을 뭐라고 말하느냐?
Such a person is a burden
사람이다.
to others as an unproductive person, a scaleless person, or an orderless person. And this is what it says.
또 이런 사람은요.
And this kind of person
시간과
has no choice
은사를
but to be a waste of time
밖에 없다.
and money.
오늘 본문 11절 말씀.
Let's look at verse 11. Yet we hear that some of you are living idle lives, refusing to work and meddling in other people's
만들기만 하는
business.
자들이 있다 하니 이렇게 말합니다. 무슨 말씀입니까?
What does this mean?
일하지를 않으면서
There are people who don't work
만들기만 하는
but
사람들이 지금
just
있다라는
create work.
일은 하지 않으면서
They don't work,
일만 만드는 사람.
but they just create
로마서
the work.
편에서요.
There's a Roman saying, if a person does nothing, he or she learns evil. This is the Roman saying.
그러니까 당연히
So what this means is,
해야 할 일을
if you don't do what you're supposed to do, you're going to do what you shouldn't do,
된다라는 말입니다.
what you shouldn't be doing.
자꾸 엉뚱한
And it's going in the
방향으로
wrong
나가는
direction. It's going to be going in the wrong direction.
물론
Of course,
오늘 우리의 일에도 여러 가지 문제
there are many problems with our work today.
일을 하기는 하는데요.
People that work diligently but often become a slave to work,
우리가 자꾸
not
일에 노예가 될 때가
a master to the work.
여러분
Our congregation,
먹고
we are not
살기
working
위해서
as a means to make
일하는
ends
것이
meet.
아닙니다, 여러분. 일
The
자체에
work itself
분명한 의미가 있다.
is meaningful.
일은
Work
일대로
is meaningful in a way,
보수는
and the
보수대로
reimbursement
의미가
has a meaning in a way.
그런데 우리 현대인들의 그 노동이 잘못된
But the reason why modern labor is wrong
태도가 우리 가운데 있기
is
때문에
because we have this ego gratification
추구하려는 자기
which
중심적인
only
그러한
seeks
인간주의
the
때문에
joy of personal
satisfaction,
satisfaction,
자기 만족에 빠지기 때문이고요.
because they
또한
and also self
자기 실현에 빠지기 때문에
actualization.
그러니까 어떤 나의 욕망, 나의 어떤 명예,
And that's why they work for their own desires, their own honor, and their own joy.
그래서요
So that is why
피곤합니다.
we get tired.
그래서요
And that is why.
인생이 자꾸 허무하게 여겨지는 겁니다.
And I can't get out of vain and from suffering.
일만 생각하면 고통스럽습니다.
Whenever I think of work,
그래서 우리가
it's painful.
못하더라는 거예요. 왜요?
Why?
노동에 참
Because they lost the true meaning of labor.
그야말로 일하는 목적이요.
It is that the purpose of work is wrong.
그래서 일이라고만 하면요.
So when you work,
그게 귀찮고요.
you start thinking about being lazy
하게 되고.
and already tired.
그리고 우리가 어느 정도 여유만 생기면요.
And if you have some time,
일하려고 생각부터 하게 된다라는 것입니다.
don't you start thinking about not working?
오늘
But
본문은 우리에게 뭐라고 말을 합니까?
what does it say in today's passage?
사람은
Everyone
누구나
should
일을
work.
하고 이렇게 말합니다. 그렇지 않고 일하기
Otherwise, if you don't want to work, don't even eat,
합니다.
is what the message says. Everyone,
자기의 일을 하는 가운데 자기의 양식을 먹으라고
everyone told him to eat his own food while quietly doing his job.
오늘 본문 3장
When we look at verse 9, let's read it together. We certainly had the right to ask you to feed us, but we wanted to give you an example to follow.
함이니라 이렇게 말합니다. 이 말씀을 보면요. 사도 바울은 일하지
The Apostle Paul had the right not to work, but he worked. Apostle Paul, because God worked first, and humans were supposed to work from the very beginning. And that is why. Among the words Jesus had said earlier in the parables, how blessed it would be to see the master working diligently when he came. Matthew 24:46 says, if the master returns and finds that the servant had done a good job, there will be a great reward. And Jesus couldn't actually sleep because he worked so hard for God's kingdom.
분명히 오늘 우리가 지금 누리고 있는 모든 것은요 하나님께서 이루어 주신 것이에요.
All the things that we have is a blessing from God.
아무것도 하지 않아도 된다라는
Obviously, God has done everything for us, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't do anything at all.
우리가 감사한 마음으로
With gratitude to God for all of His achievements, we need to be able to do our best for the work God have entrusted in us.
여러분,
My beloved congregation, work is a blessing and a gift.
일하면서 기쁨을 얻고
I will get joy
일하면서 행복을
by working, find happiness by working, realizing by working, and find good health
찾을 것입니다.
by working.
예수님께서 말씀
Jesus said the Pharisees
안식일 날의 그 문제로 시비를 벌이자
make a bombshell announcement as they argue
폭탄선언을 하시죠.
over the Sabbath issue.
요한복음 5장 10절.
John 5:17 says this, My Father had worked and I have worked. God works.
사랑하는 성도 여러분, 하나님께서 일하십니다.
God works.
그러므로
Therefore,
예수님께서
Jesus works.
음식 잡수실 겨를도
He doesn't even have time to eat because of the amount of hard work that he had. When we work hard
열심히
in the
일할 때
footsteps of the Lord,
우리가
that there is
참 행복과
happiness, true happiness, and true joy.
있게 되며 그리함으로
And we will
하나님께서 주시는
indeed
그 은사를
enjoy the grace of God that God gives us.
사랑하는 성도 여러분, 주님의 뒤를 따라서
As we follow the footsteps
일하시고
of the Lord,
그렇기 때문에 예수님께서
and that is the reason why Jesus works,
뒤를 따라서
and as we follow the footsteps of the Lord,
일과
may we work hard
통해 주시는 그 축복을
and may we
충만히 누릴 때
experience the blessing that God gives us from work and rest, and that from this that we would be able to find true joy and true happiness in our lives.
은혜
I pray that this blessing
여러분과 저 가운데
that you and I
하기를 주님의 이름으로 축원합니다.
want to bless you with this type of blessing in God's name.